Deep below the waves, the steady hum of the submarine stopped. The green glow of the sonar screen, their only eyes in the dark, blinked out. A sudden, heavy silence filled the small space. It was not a power failure. It was something else. All at once, every piece of their equipment was dead. The satellite phone, their link to the world above, was silent. The cameras, meant to record this deep place, showed only blackness. They were floating, blind and alone, almost 300 feet down. Something below them had turned everything off. This was not a warm, clear ocean. This was the Baltic Sea. It is a cold, dark body of water, a place known for its ghosts. The water here is special. It has very little salt and very little oxygen, which means things don't rust or rot away. Because of this, the Baltic Sea is a perfect graveyard. It's a silent museum holding centuries of secrets. Ancient Viking longships rest on its floor, their wood still strong. Sunken submarines from old wars lie waiting in the dark, perfectly kept. It is a place that holds on to its past. A team of explorers, called the Ocean X Team, were scanning this deep floor. They were not scientists, they were treasure hunters, looking for old shipwrecks. But what they found on their sonar screen was not a ship. It was something impossible. The image showed a perfect circle. It was huge, about 60 meters wide, the size of a jumbo jet. It was smooth and rounded. It did not look like a rock that nature had made. It looked like something someone had built, something that did not belong on the bottom of the sea. But it got stranger. The sonar showed more than just the object. Behind it, a long scar was carved into the seabed, a deep line stretching for 300 meters. It was a drag mark. Think about that. A huge, circular object weighing thousands of tons had seemingly slid across the ocean floor. It was as if something immense had crashed, skidding to a stop in the mud and sand, leaving a trail of its final, violent moments. So, they sent divers down. Into the freezing, murky water they went. Their powerful lights cut through the darkness, searching for the strange shape. They were filled with a mix of excitement and a deep, quiet fear. No one knew what they would find. When their lights finally hit the object, they saw it was not smooth rock. The surface was covered in strange lines. The lines formed corridors and hallways, all meeting at perfect 90-degree angles. It looked like the streets of a tiny, sunken city built by hands that were not human. As the divers went down, the water grew colder. The light from the surface faded into a deep, endless blue, then black. And then their lights hit it. A surface, not jagged and rocky like the rest of the seabed. It was smooth, curved. It looked made. But it was what happened on the boat above that was truly strange. As the ship drifted directly over the object, something happened. A zone of silence fell over them. Not a sound. An electronic silence. Every piece of high-tech gear just stopped. The satellite phones went dead. Digital cameras showed only black screens. Even some of the advanced sonar equipment that found the thing in the first place went quiet. This only happened inside a circle about 200 meters wide, right on top of the Anomaly. When the boat moved away, everything flickered back to life. The divers were told to get a piece of it. Anything. They managed to break off a small, dark sample. They brought this piece back to the surface, a tiny fragment of a giant mystery. Geologists looked at it under microscopes. They were confused. At first, it looked like basalt, a common volcanic rock, but it held a secret. Inside were metals like limonite and goethite. These are materials that usually need intense heat to form, like in a volcano. They shouldn't be forming naturally in the cold, dark bottom of the Baltic Sea. It didn't make sense. But the mystery was more than just rock and metal. It was a feeling. The divers spoke about it later, in hushed voices. They said it felt strange down there, unsettling. They had a powerful sense of being watched from the crushing darkness. One diver's experience was the strangest of all. As he got close to the object, his waterproof camera, a tool he trusted on every dive, simply died in his hands. No warning. It just went black. But back on the boat, away from the Anomaly, it turned on and worked perfectly. Of course, there is a simple explanation, an official story. Some scientists believe the object is nothing more than a glacial deposit, a very large, oddly shaped rock carried and dropped by a melting glacier thousands and thousands of years ago. It's a neat and tidy answer. Glaciers can do strange things. They carve up the land and move huge boulders across continents. A rock sitting on the seafloor for 10,000 years. It seems to explain everything away. It is a simple story. A rock left by ice. Nothing more to see. But that simple story doesn't explain the dead electronics. It doesn't explain the perfectly straight drag mark. And it doesn't explain the feeling that something ancient is sleeping in the deep. But here is the secret, the part that doesn't fit the simple story. A rock left behind by ancient ice does not stop electronics from working. It just sits there. This object did something else. Rocks do not create a field of energy around them. They don't have an aura of silence that makes cameras go black and satellite phones fail. Glacial deposits are just stone, ground down and pushed by ice. They are geologically quiet. This thing was loud in a way that technology could feel, and there was more. The divers reported strange lines on the surface. Hallways, almost. Some at perfect right angles. A rock, tumbled by a glacier, does not have perfect angles. And the samples they brought up, they contained metals that should not be there. It wasn't just a rock, so the questions linger in the dark water. What kind of natural thing can create a dead zone for technology? What on the seafloor can reach up and blind a satellite? A normal object can't do that. Nothing we know of. It makes you wonder, is it some kind of strange, natural battery formed over millions of years? A geological freak of nature? Or is it something else, something that was made, something ancient, that is still turned on? Think about what this means. This object, whatever it is, acts like a guardian. It sits in the dark and keeps its secrets. It creates a space around itself where our eyes and ears cannot work properly. A small bubble of the unknown. We send probes to Mars. We look at stars that are millions of light years away. But here, just a few hundred feet below the waves on our own planet, is a mystery we cannot solve. A place that simply tells us, you are not welcome here. The Ocean X team never returned. The money ran out. The questions became too big, and the answers were buried too deep. The Anomaly is still there today, resting in the cold, dark water of the Baltic Sea, waiting. It sits in its zone of silence, a huge, dark shape that defies our simple explanations. And it is just one discovery, one shadow on a sonar screen. It reminds us that 95% of our oceans are completely unexplored. A vast, deep, and dark world holding secrets we can't even imagine. Some have whispered another idea, a much stranger one. What if the object isn't natural at all? What if it's the remains of something built? The straight lines and perfect angles seen on the sonar, they don't look like anything a glacier would leave behind. They look like walls or hallways. The material itself is a puzzle. The piece brought to the surface was basalt, a common volcanic rock, but the divers said the main object felt different. It felt like finished stone, smooth and cold, and the strange channels carved into its surface seemed too perfect, too deliberate. This opens a door to a much deeper mystery. What if this object is old? Not just thousands of years old, like a rock from the Ice Age, but impossibly old, from a time before our own stories began. A relic from a forgotten chapter of Earth's history. And if it is that ancient, why does it still have power? The electronic silence isn't just a strange effect. It could be a sign of something still working, a quiet hum of energy deep beneath the waves, a defense system maybe, or a warning. It got stranger. The divers reported that the object seemed to be sitting on a pillar. It wasn't just resting on the seabed, it was raised up, as if it were placed there on purpose, waiting to be found, or waiting to be left alone. Think about that. An object of unknown origin with unnatural shapes sitting on a pedestal at the bottom of the sea, and it can turn off our most advanced technology. It is not just a rock, it is a question, sitting in the dark. Imagine you are there, in that small submarine. The lights flicker, the radio goes silent, the only sound is your own breathing, and outside your tiny window is a massive dark shape that should not exist, a presence that feels ancient and aware. That is the feeling the Baltic Sea anomaly leaves behind. It is a reminder that we are just scratching the surface. that the deep, cold waters hold secrets we are not ready for, secrets that have been waiting in the silence for a very, very long time. This strange circle is just one discovery. The Baltic Sea is filled with old shipwrecks and strange sonar readings. It is an ancient sea, a place of history and myth. The Anomaly is not alone down there. It is just the one that has made itself known. Perhaps the silence it creates is a message, a quiet but firm request to turn back. It suggests that some doors are meant to remain closed, and some secrets are meant to be kept by the sea itself forever.